On the rural outskirts of St. Louis, there's a tourist attraction with a dark history. An artificial mound that covers 51 acres of land features a set of stairs and an observation platform that civilians can climb. But what's inside this man-made mountain is what's most interesting and dangerous about the site. Roughly 40 miles west of St. Louis is the location of the former Weldon Spring Ordnance Works, a 17,000-acre site operated by Atlas Powder Company. When purchased in 1940, the towns of Hamburg, Howell, and Toonerville were eliminated and displaced 700 citizens. The site manufactured explosives during World War II, including TNT and DNT. This manufacturing resulted in nitroaromatic contamination of soil, sediments, and some off-site springs. After the war ended, the Atomic Energy Commission acquired part of the property, while some of the land was purchased to create the August A. Bush Memorial Conservation Area, a donation of the Anheuser-Busch conglomerate, now a part of InBev. The ACE acquired the land to process uranium as well as some thorium. This processing resulted in radiological contamination of the area, as waste was simply stored with raffinate in pits dug into the ground. The site also contained the Weldon Spring Quarry, which the U.S. Army used to both mine for limestone aggregate as well as to burn radioactive waste that resulted from TNT and DNT manufacturing at the site. Both barreled and uncontained waste was also buried in the quarry by the AEC. This resulted in more contamination of the soil and groundwater. Uranium processing operations ceased in 1966. For nearly 20 years, the toxic site sat untouched. In 1985, when full control of the land was transferred to the U.S. Department of Energy, at which time the DOE designated control and decontamination of the chemical plant, raffinate pits, and quarry as a major project. On October 15, 1984, the United States Environmental Protection Agency proposed listing the portions of the Weldon Spring area contaminated with radioactive waste on the National Priorities List. It took 3 years for the site to be considered a priority. The now 230-acre site was contaminated with uranium, thorium, radium, and their radioactive decay products, as well as TNT and DNT residues. The site is less than a mile from the St. Charles County well field, which is used as a drinking water source for approximately 70,000 people. The EPA and DOE's solution for the site was to create a giant man-made mountain dug into the ground of the site. 1.48 million cubic yards of toxic waste was dumped into a single cell, surrounded by lead and concrete and covered in stones. An interpretive center to explain the history of the site was also added. The EPA claims that the site will contain the waste for 1,000 years. However, the efficacy of the site as well as the thoroughness of the area's cleanup has been widely contested. In 2015, Al Jazeera America ran a 2-part series on the complications of the site, including a spike in infant deaths in the area. During the course of that investigation, it became obvious to me that there was a serious problem related to the impacted groundwater that had uranium in it, said Daniel McKeel, a retired Washington University pathologist who was involved in investigating contamination-related health effects in St. Charles County in the early 2000s. It had thorium in it, and that was particularly prevalent at the quarry site, which is about 0.6 of a mile from the part of where St. Charles County gets its drinking water. Some samples at Department of Energy sampling wells continue to test positive for thorium and uranium, in some cases more than 15 times the maximum contamination level for public drinking water set by the EPA. Yet the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services insists the site isn't a hazard, despite